This is the Red Podcast.
It's Red Podcast, the marketing podcast for experts. David Hooper here. If you're somebody with a message to spread, you get people excited about that message, make money with it, you are in the right place. Doing a follow-up on the previous episode where I interviewed Wayne Geiger. He's a preacher, he's a teacher, he's a radio guy. And one of the things that I mentioned to him in the last episode is that when I was growing up, I made assumptions about the church and how it worked. I thought two things. One, that people go to church automatically. Attendance isn't something the church has to worry about. The second thing that I thought was that people give money to the church, they do it regularly, and that money is not something that the church has to worry about. Neither of those things is true, of course, and Wayne talks more about that on the previous episode. I want to talk about how that applies to your business. Those two things, that people don't automatically come to your business or that money doesn't automatically come to your business, those two things should be obvious. Money and attention, they are not automatic. Yet, how many times do we look at the businesses of others and we think something different? Something similar to what I thought about the business of church when I was a kid. We think, oh, that guy was on TV. Of course he's got a big podcast. Or, oh, that guy's a great speaker. Of course he has a lot of speaking gigs. Or basically this, the work, the sponsors, and the money find people, not the other way around. It is the other way around. And it's the other way around at all levels of business. One of the reasons I think people get confused about this is that once you get the momentum going, it can be easier to get gigs or otherwise make money. But to get what you really want, you still need to go after it. It certainly helps. Rarely does it just come your way. And if it does, it won't last that way forever. You think about somebody at the top of the pop music charts. That artist would have a lot of opportunity. And there's so much of it that you can find what you want within it usually. Or you certainly have a better chance. But as that star fades, you don't get those kind of opportunities unless you go out and get them. Same thing for us. In my book, Big Podcast, I talk about doing work at a modeling agency. And that was when I was in Columbus, Ohio. It's the home of Victoria's Secret and also related companies, Abercrombie & Fitch, Express was big at the time, Structure. Those were the clients of this agency. By the way, I was doing voiceover. I wasn't handling the models, not unless they had a great voice. And that was actually the joke. We'd say, she's so hot, she could just mumble and get the gig. Anyway, a lot of beautiful people coming through this office, men and women. Why were they doing that? They were doing that to keep top of mind. I'll talk about this in the book. These are the type of people that were so good looking, they would walk out onto the street and you would think, man, those guys don't have a care in the world. People come to them with money, dates, jobs, whatever. They don't have to do anything. But that was not true. They were in that office to let the booking agents know that they existed and also to ask for jobs. That's basically what they were doing. Do you have any work for me? It was that kind of thing. It was people trying to be at the right place at the right time. My wife, she's in a similar business now. I see this a lot with her work as a photographer. I'll give you an example of this. A couple of weeks ago, she was working with a model from New York, and this model has been getting some really good work lately. She's that artist at the top of the chart, and she's got all these opportunities coming to her. She had just come off a shoot for CoverGirl, for example. That's a big client. It's a prestigious client. And when you were there doing that kind of work, you're showing people, yes, I can do this kind of work. They are more likely to book you. But this model, she wasn't just assuming that that was going to happen. She was hustling. Before she left the shoot, she'd already set things in place to do a test. And what a test is basically where you're working for free in exchange to use photographs or whatever is created in your portfolio. So you've got a makeup artist, a stylist, a photographer, a model, for example, and they can all show what they do. They're looking for other talented people, and they get together and they form this co-op. They say, we're all going to do this for free. We're not going to sell it. We're not going to make money off of it. Not directly. We can use it to get future work. That is where the money is. So she came into this shoot, liked the people that she was working with, and set something else up. She was a hustler. But to somebody on the outside, they're going to look at that CoverGirl shoot that she just did, that CoverGirl ad, and they're going to think, oh, she got there because she's hot. But you've still got to let people know what you want and then go for it, even if you have won the genetic lottery, or if you've been on TV, or if you've had a hit song, or you talk about the one true religion. People don't just come to you. People do not just give you money. That's it. A short episode just to say that you have to go for what you want. I'm not saying it has to be a struggle. There's ease to it. There's a flow. But you've got to put in the work. And that work, it takes time and it takes consistency. Everybody talks about yearly goals, but let's look at something similar. Are you on track to have a successful month? Are you on track to have a successful week? They, whoever they are, they say that we overestimate what we can do in a day, but underestimate what we can do in a year. What do you want for the next 12 months, the next year? How can that be broken down? Maybe you're going to release a certain number of podcast episodes. You want 50 episodes for the year? That's one per week. Or maybe you want to release a book. 50,000 words, 1,000 words per week. You know how to do math. Why aren't you doing it? It's very simple. Maybe you want to do outreach. Say, hey, if I got on more podcasts this year, I could sell that book that I've written. Well, what is that going to take? If you show up and you do the work daily, that yearly goal works itself out. Think about what Wayne said about the pecan pie. If he mentions it in a sermon, somebody's going to hear that, and they're very likely going to bake him one. That's based on the relationships that he has with those people, but that's also based on him doing the work. He shows up every week, he gives a sermon, he does what it takes to cultivate those relationships and give these people content in the form of sermons and other things he does as a pastor that they find helpful, and then they pay it back. You are the same way. You've got your expert business, you're giving people helpful information, you're forming a relationship with them through the blog posts that you write, the books you write, the podcast interviews you do, the podcasts that you put out, whatever your form of media is, and they pay you back in money, or they pay you back in the reviews that they give you, or they pay you back by telling a friend. That's another thing for you to look at in your goal setting. How can you develop better relationships? Let's take it back to those smaller chunks of weekly and maybe daily action. Weekly outreach, a phone call every day, a tweet every day to somebody that you're trying to connect with, maybe an email. Think about what I said, that the audience doesn't just come to you, the money doesn't just come to you. You go after what you want, and the way to go after what you want, it's breaking those big things down into little things. And finally, to summarize this, probably why everybody thinks that the work just comes to you, find that ease. It shouldn't be that difficult for you to go out and have these connections with people, and it shouldn't be that difficult for you to let people know what it is that you want. What do you want? I want to know. Reach out to me. You can do it via Twitter, at David Hooper on Twitter. You can do it via my website, bigpodcast.com. There's a contact form on there. And if you've got a podcast, I would love to work with you to help you grow your podcast audience, strengthen your message, make money with that message. If you want more information on this podcast, while you are on the Big Podcast site, bigpodcast.com/subscribe, you'll see a subscribe button for Red Podcast. You'll see some of the other marketing podcasts that I host. Every one of them about spreading your message, growing an audience, making money with your message. Thanks for listening to Red Podcast. Got some more great episodes coming up. Make sure you subscribe, bigpodcast.com/subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode.